All right, good evening. This is Mr. Barr, and I just wanted to take some time to go through my ACT prep items with you and talk to you about some of the things that I've been teaching in my ACT prep class. Unfortunately, because of this COVID-19 virus, we're not going to be able to be together for at least a few weeks. But I thought I'd still walk you through it. I know the April ACT has been canceled or rescheduled. You can take it at a later date, but I just wanted to provide you with the resources. So on this video is on my website, and let's kind of get started here. So part one of this presentation is preparation. Let's talk about generally preparing for the ACT, some general strategies. First off, get your stuff ready the night before. Don't panic or frazzle yourself trying to find your stuff in the morning of your test. Look, I know how some of you operate. Some of you are very fly by the seat of your pants. I'm going to get to school at 8:25 and rush into class and be there right as the bell rings. And that's fine, but this isn't that. So you need to make sure you give yourself plenty of time. Have your stuff out the night before. The things you're going to need are ID, your some kind of photo ID. Your school ID doesn't count. It has to be state issued ID or a military ID. Your ticket, which you'll print off the internet when they send you an email after you register. Then you're gonna need a pencil and a calculator. You can bring some other stuff, but I'll talk about that in just a minute. By the way, on this webpage also will be the ACT calculator policy, so make sure you take a look at that. You're gonna want to eat a smart breakfast. Avoid junk food. I like donuts, but they're not good for you, especially in the morning. Do some practice questions before you run through. Do a 5-minute drill. Run through some practice questions, get used to it, and see where you're at. Bring smart snacks in a water bottle. You can eat, especially on breaks, and that gets your brain stimulated. It keeps your brain sharp during the test, so make sure you take care of that. Get here on time. It's Iowa. Weather's weird. Give yourself plenty of time to get there. All right, you never know what things are going to go wrong on your way, and you don't want to be running there just at the last minute. The next one is that you need to develop a positive mental attitude. And that goes hand in hand with my last bullet, which is keep the test in perspective. Here's a little straight talk from me. The truth is, we overvalue the ACT as a society. We do. We put way too much emphasis on it. This is one test over one day. It has nothing to do with how smart you are. Okay, it does have a little bit. That's a little bit of a fib. It does have a little bit to do with how smart you are, but it doesn't define how smart you are. As a teacher, it tells me nothing about what you know or your work habits or how good you are in the classroom. It's a general knowledge test that you have to try to master. So understand that if you don't do well, that's okay. The national average is 20.1. The 19.1, excuse me. The Iowa average is 21.7. So it's not like Iowa's doing that much better than the national average. Okay. So you don't have to get a 33 to be at the national average. You can get something a little bit lower than that and be okay. Don't let the test define you. Don't beat yourself up. You'll be okay. Hopefully I can give you some strategies to make it less frustrating. Get as much sleep as you can the night before. I know you got a lot of stuff going on. It's springtime. There's a million things going on, a million activities, whatever, or if you take it during the summer, but get as much sleep as you possibly can the night before. All right, let's talk about the test itself because there's some general things I want to make sure you know. First off, there's 4 sections. English is you get 45 minutes for 75 questions. Math, you get 60 minutes for 60 questions. Reading, you get 35 minutes for 40 questions. In science, you get 35 minutes for 40 questions. And I'll break these down individually in a minute as we get through each section. And this is the order that you'll take them in always, okay? So be prepared for that. How is it scored? You get a composite, which is the average of the 4 sections together. They're also going to give you a scale score, which is your score for each individual section. So, for example, your math score, your English score, your science score, your reading score. The raw score is the number of correct answers. Okay, so if I start referring to your raw score, that's the number of correct answers that you get on that particular part of the test. Then there is something called a subscore. You won't have to worry about this too much, but number of questions right in each category. So, for example, on the math test, there's algebra, right? So the number of questions right in each category in algebra on the math test would be your subscore, okay? How do you get a good score? Well, here's some general things you can do. I get asked all the time, how do I get a good score? First off, it's really important to have that positive growth mindset. You'll be okay. It's one day, it's one test. You can do it. You're smart enough. You need to maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. And this is hard because this is opposite of everything we do in school. Everything we do in school is we teach you to fix your weaknesses. If, for example, if you're really bad at balancing equations, then I'm going to give you problems to help you do that and get better at that skill. On the ACT, you don't want to do that. Because of time and the way the test is built, you want to do the things that you know how to do and avoid the things you don't know how to do, or deal with the things you don't know how to do. Okay, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Set a target number of correct answers. Say, hey, look, the great part about the ACT is that you don't get punished for wrong answers. Okay, so find ones that you know how to do. Say, okay, I'm going to give you, I've also posted on this website a chart or a table that has your composite score target, and then it has what you need to get on each section of that in order to get that score. Okay, so you might need to get a 30 on English to get a 34 on the ACT, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Okay, so set your target for the number of correct answers and then shoot for that target. Train your brain to take this test differently from other tests. This isn't like a test in high school. I'm going to deduct points in government if you don't do well on your government test. For every question you get wrong, I'm going to deduct points. Here they don't. They just care about what you get right. That changes your perspective and your skills. All right. Let's talk about some general ACT strategies that will be important for you going forward. All right. Answer questions using what I call POOD. And this is a really important strategy, and it saved my life. All right. POOD is personal order of difficulty. All right. What that means is that you don't have to work the ACT in the order it provides because that's the ACT. Instead, find your personal degree of difficulty. Put questions into 3 categories. So when you look at a question, it needs to go in one of these 3 categories. Now, questions that you can do right now. So you look at it, you know you can do it right away, you do it now. Later are ones that you can do but will take more time. And then there's never questions. Okay, there's going to be some parts of the ACT that you just don't know how to do, because if you haven't had trigonometry, for example, you're not going to know how to do trigonometry questions. So don't be afraid of that. Just understand that's the way it works. Okay, so you've got to make sure that you understand that going into the ACT. All right, so now, later, never needs to be the focus of your attention. All right, so put those questions into 3 categories: now, later, and never. Personal order of difficulty. You don't have to work the ACT in the order that it provides because that's the order. Okay, do the ones you know how to do now first, the ones that you can do but it'll take more time later, and then there's going to be some that you're never going to be able to do. For that, I want you to use letters of the day. And letters of the day means pick 2 letters. It's going to be A, B, C, D, E, and then it's going to be F, G, H, I, J. All right, so pick 2 letters. And whenever you guess, those are always your 2 letters. If it's C and J, great. Then that's always the 2 letters. All right, so just have those in your head ahead of time and then figure that out. All right. Okay, let's talk about the English test generally here. So what I'm going to do for these next few sections is I'm going to talk about, give you an overview of that particular test, and then give you some strategies for doing well on that particular section. Okay, so English, you get 45 minutes for 75 questions. It breaks down roughly like this. Rhetorical skills are 35 questions, and then grammar, like usage and mechanics, is 40 questions. Okay, so most of the test is grammar. Basically, you're going to get 5 essays or passages, and each is going to be followed by a set of multiple choice questions. Some focus on an underlined portion, a section of the passage, or the passage as a whole. It just depends. So you got to be aware of that going in. All right, tips for the English test. You have to use that POOD strategy. Personal order of difficulty, now, later, never. Okay, be aware of the writing style in each passage. That matters. All right, examine the underlined portions of the passage. And then note the differences in choices. Sometimes they're just slightly different. Don't let that mess with you. Okay. Remember, you get 36 seconds per question. So you've got to make your now, later, never decisions quickly. You don't have time to mess around making those decisions. Make them quickly. And most importantly, finish. Okay. You have to finish the ACT. In government, we always talk about the No Child Left Behind Act, right? It's an education law passed in the Bush administration. in ACT prep, I always say leave no bubble unfilled. Okay, don't ever leave a bubble empty. There's no reason to. You don't get punished for incorrect answers. You only get punished, but you'll lose points if you don't even try to answer it. Pick up some points somewhere. Do the best you can. Try to answer it if you don't know. All right. Let's talk about everybody's favorite section on the ACT, and that's math. And this is the one that students loathe, but I think I can get you to the point where you're in good shape. Okay. For the math, 60 minutes, and you have 60 questions. All right, 57 to 60% of the test is higher math, and then skills, factoring, addition, subtraction, multiplication, basic math skills are 40 to 43%. Okay, it's going to break down roughly like this: pre-algebra or elementary algebra, so very basic algebra, 24 questions. Algebra and coordinate geometry is going to be 18 questions. Plane geometry and trig is going to be another 18 questions. The problem with the math test is everybody's at a different spot in math. Okay, math's got the biggest gap of achievement in probably any subject in school. Okay, so if you haven't had trig, then guess where your questions are going to be. Most of your never questions are going to be on those trig ones because you've never seen it. You don't know that. You have to know that going in and just be prepared for that. Okay, now it's important to know that the test does get harder as you go. So the farther you get into the math section, the more difficult it gets. So most of your never questions are going to be later in the test. Okay, so most of your never questions are going to be later in the test. So be prepared for that. Let's talk about tips for the math test. On this test especially, more than anything else you'll take on the ACT, time is your enemy. It is not on your side, okay? You have to use POOD. You have to use that personal order of difficulty strategy to help you. Pace yourself. You can bring a little watch or a little timer. They should tell you how much time is left, but they don't have to, okay? If they're a terrible proctor, they might not, and that's the way it works, okay? So pace yourself. Know where you're at. Know what your target score is, okay? Answer all the questions. Remember, you don't get punished for incorrect answers, and it's not like a normal math class. They don't care if you show your work or not. You just have to get an answer, so get an answer. Use your calculator wisely. In college, I used to make a big mistake all the time. I took a managerial economics class online, and it was awful. Okay, but going in, I was like, oh, this will be a piece of cake because it's open book tests. So what did I do? I used my book on every single question on the test. And it was a time test, so I had like an hour or something to complete it. And it took forever because I was thumbing through the book and trying to find the answer instead of just learning the material, and then I could know the answer. Same thing here. There's going to be some problems that you can do without a calculator. Do them. That's faster. Don't use your calculator on every problem. Use it when you have to, but don't use it as a crutch. Math, especially, you're going to have to accept the fact that there's going to be some that you don't know how to do. Okay. But you still need to finish them. Finish the test, but there's going to be some that you don't know how to do. You can't get stuck up on that. You got to make your now, later, never decisions very quickly because you only have 1 minute per question. Okay. You got to make it quickly. And keep the math test in perspective. Okay. Understand something. On the math test, a 60%, 60%, okay, will get you the national average on math. That'll put you at about a 20. If you get so you can get a 60%. You could get 60% on the math test and still get the national average. You could get a 50%. You could miss 30. You could get 30 out of 60 correct and still get a 19, which is right below the national average. So it's not like you have to ace the math test to really do well. It's 1 out of 4 sections. Okay, so it doesn't weigh any more than anything else, but it's the most stressful section because everybody's math scores aren't always where they want it to be sometimes. But understand it's going to get harder as you go. Use this strategy, and I think you'll be okay. I have confidence. All right, let's talk about reading. The reading test, 35 minutes for 40 questions, 4 categories, social studies and natural science, 20 questions. Hey, look at that. Bam, right there. We're not on the ISASS test, your Iowa assessments every year, but we made it on the ACT. I'm dabbing right now, but you can't see that because it's not a video. So my wife is horrified. Anyway, 20 questions. Arts and literature is 20 questions. Each passage is roughly 800 to 850 words and has 10 questions with it. It's usually how it breaks down. So not terribly long, but they get kind of long sometimes. General pacing guide. So this isn't set in stone. This is kind of what the ACT people tell you. And this is kind of my experience. The first passage should take you about 11 minutes. The second one should be about 10. The third passage should be about 8. And the fourth passage should be about 6. So your fourth passage should take the least amount of time. Okay. So be aware of that. All right. Let's talk about some tips for the reading test. You got to use POOD. Okay, use that personal order difficulty. Use the questions to help you read. Read only if you have to. Chances are you're not going to be interested in what they're talking about. That's the way the world works. Okay, so you're not going to be super interested in it, which is going to make it more difficult to read and stay focused on the reading. So read only if you have to. Skim. Skim is a very good skill that we need to practice more, especially at school. All right, so make sure, read only if you have to, but skim. Skim if you can, okay? Time is not your friend. Remember, you don't have to be an expert on this subject. You're not going to get tested on it. You don't have to have a master's dissertation. You just have to be able to read it and get through the test. So time is not your friend. Make your decisions quickly, find the answer, and move on. All right, let's talk about science. 35 minutes for 40 questions, so the same amount of time as the reading test. Okay, you're going to get 15 charts and graphs, data representation, 18 experiments or research studies, and 7 what they call conflicting viewpoints. All right, now, you'll notice that's not science like you know it is. It's not normal science. You're not balancing equations. It's not, chemical reactions and things like that. It's not, physical science or earth science or physics or anatomy. It's a different kind of science. So you got to have your brain ready for that going in. Okay, and remember, this test, just like the math test, does get harder as you go. So again, most of your never questions, are going to be later in the test. All right, let's talk about tips for acing this science test. It's not science like you think of it, so just understand that. Use POOD. Time is your enemy, as is always the case on the ACT. You don't got a lot of time here, so you can't mess around. You got to make decisions quickly and move on. Read only if you have to. Again, skim it. Use the passages to help you answer the questions. And honestly, I used to have a bullet on here that just said think. Most of these are logical. Okay, they're interpreting a chart. It's not that bad. You'll be okay. I'm confident you can do that skill. All right, some final takeaways. Let me just leave you with some final thoughts here as we wrap up this video here. First off, you got to use POOD. That's a critical strategy. You have to master it. The PDF that I have up on my website has some practice tests in it with an answer key. You can feel free to take those and then score yourself using this strategy. If you desperately need a copy of it, shoot me an email and let me know, and I can maybe hook you up with one while we're on this hiatus here. You got to label questions now, later, never. Okay, use your letter of the day for never ones. Okay, use your letters of the day on never questions. So have a set of 2 letters. Always guess, always use those questions. Always use those letters. Maximize your strengths, minimize your weaknesses. Again, find the things you do well. If your target score on math is, if you know that to get whatever your target ACT composite score is, let's say you want to get a 30 in math, I don't know, just a random number. And let's say hypothetically that you have to get a 26 correct answers to get a 30. Then get 26 correct answers. Okay. Just find the number of right answers, if anything, and focus on that. And then go back and pick up some extra points. Maximize your strengths, minimize your weaknesses. Remember, answer every question. Okay. Leave no bullet unfilled. Leave no bubble unfilled on the ACT. It's important. Your final score is an average. Okay. Pick up points where you can. Positive thoughts. You have to think positive about this test. Colleges, truthfully, small colleges like the Buena Vistas or the Northwesterns or some of those other ones, they're going to look at your cumulative file probably more because they need students. Okay. Iowa State, where they have 33,000 students going there, yeah, your ACT score is going to matter a lot. Okay. And it's going to matter anyway, but don't let it bog you down. Don't let it define you. So many kids get so negative about the ACT. They'll take it once, they do bad, they never take it again. Take it again. I get it's $65 a time or whatever, but give yourself a chance. Be confident in yourself like I am. I'm confident in you. Be confident in yourself. You'll be fine. And finally, I like to put this quote at the end. It's from one of my favorite philosophers, the great Winnie the Pooh. You can't really go wrong with Winnie the Pooh. And the quote says, "You're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think." So understand the ACT does matter a little bit how smart you are, but you're braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter